A pipeline from Alberta through Quebec? Not on my watch, say some Quebec politicians. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
What are the chances? Just what are the chances there could ever be a pipeline that runs from northern Alberta to St. John, New Brunswick through the province of Quebec? Well, if you listen to the current Premier of Quebec, François Legault, he sounds more open to the idea than he used to. Legault told a popular podcast in Quebec that the situation with Trump's tariffs has changed the equation on Alberta oil and Quebec's pipeline politics, and that the province of Quebec needs to be open to projects that years ago would have seemed unthinkable. Legault talked about the idea of building an export terminal in Sept-Îles on Quebec's North Shore. That is a shift in opinion from even just a few months ago when Premier Legault was saying any pipeline project needed social acceptability.
We talk about EnergyS or GNL. I think that we need to have social acceptability. And if Daniel Smith or whoever table projects, we'll look at them, but we need to have social acceptability.
While the current Quebec Premier is sounding a little more open to at least considering a pipeline from Alberta, there's a problem. François Legault is not popular with voters in Quebec. Legault may even leave Quebec politics before the next Quebec election because he's so deeply unpopular. There's an election there next fall. Most of the polls show the Parti Québécois would form the next government in that province, and that party's not nearly as open to a pipeline from Alberta crossing through Quebec. Pascal Paradis is the PQ's environment critic. He asked reporters this week in Quebec City, what's in it for Quebec?
The proposal now is to have a pipeline in Quebec, so throughout our lands, our rivers, and for the oil to be exported. So Quebec must look at its own economical interests. Where is Quebec's economical interest in such a project? Where are the profits, the revenues we're gaining here in Quebec? Where are the jobs, permanent job, long-term jobs that will be created by such an infrastructure? We don't know yet. We have not seen yet any project for which Quebec's economical interest was shown. And where are the markets? Where is the project at the present time? We have no project.
But do you agree with Premier Legault when he says that the idea of a pipeline in Quebec has become more socially acceptable right now?
There is one poll showing a certain openness, but to what? It's easy when, it comes to, there is an idea, they're floating there in the air. Okay, I might have a look at it. Where is the project? Because when push comes to shove, that's where the problems arise.
A poll cited by Mr. Paradis was done by La Presse. It showed 59% of Quebecers are in favor of an Energy East pipeline project. In addition to the Parti Québécois, there's another separatist party in Quebec called Québec Solidaire, very left-wing. That party's leader is Ruba Gazal. She was clear this week there will never be a pipeline from Alberta crossing through Quebec.
François Legault should be working for Quebecer interests, and having pipelines, it's against Quebecer interests. He should not be working to make sure that Alberta will be able to transport their dirty energy, and as if this is what François Legault is doing. To fight for the economy, to work for the economy of Quebec. For example, we can construct the hospital of Hôpital Maisonneuve-Rosemont. We can construct schools, construct and take care of our infrastructure.
She dismissed any polling that shows an increase in support in that province for an Energy East pipeline, saying people are just scared because of the economic uncertainty created by Donald Trump's tariffs.
People now, they are afraid of the economical situation, and it's normal. Now the responsibility of a government is to make sure to do the good decisions, and having a pipeline is not a good decision. When Quebecers see the consequences, the economical consequences, the environmental consequences, the social consequences of pipeline here in Quebec, as they saw for Energy Est and GNL Quebec, there's no social acceptability. This is what happened in the past, and this is what will happen for any other future project.
So in that regard, Ruba Gazal sounds a lot like her separatist friends in Ottawa, like the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet.
We are living through the proof that big Canadian parties are going to walk on us, literally, favoring the interests of Toronto and Ontario and its banks, or the interests of Western Canada and oil and gas. And in the same day, we see those two things. Could we literally scrap supply management? It's bad for other Canadian economic interests. We should trade, say, okay, we forget supply management, so important for Quebec. We'll deal something good for Ontario car industry. And we also hear people, including Mr. Carney, say, okay, now it's time. We will come in Quebec with pipelines that will, at the end, we will get it. We will go through Quebec with pipelines.
And then there are the recent comments from one of those most powerful Quebec cabinet ministers in the new Carney government, Stephen Guilbeault, the Prime Minister's Quebec lieutenant.
I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now. There are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not governments.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said this week she's encouraged by the new tone she's hearing from Quebec about pipelines. With all due respect to the Premier, she might not be listening to the right people. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
The summer job market for young people is said to be one of the worst in years. For reasons as to why, we're joined by Brendan Bernard, senior economist at the Indeed Hiring Lab. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How would you describe it right now, the labor market for young people this summer?
Yeah, so it's not looking good, and it's a trend that's actually been building up over the past few years. Coming out of the pandemic, Canadian job market was quite strong, and that extended to youth. We saw youth unemployment in 2022 and the first half of 2023 get to really low levels by historic standards. And that situation has just reversed quite quickly in just 2 years' time, where the unemployment rate has shot up, and it doesn't look like it's going to be getting better in the near term. We see on Indeed seasonal job postings, summer job postings down 22% compared to where they were last May.
Okay. What role has immigration played in all of this?
Well, so I see the immigration in sort of Canada's surging population growth kind of like interacting at a difficult time when employer hiring appetite is pulling back. So youth in general are always moving in and out of the labor market, changing jobs. They need employers to be hiring for a strong market. We've seen employer hiring appetite pull back kind of after that boom period. It's really reversed. But at the same time as that sort of pullback in hiring appetite has happened, the Canadian population, and particularly the population of people under age 25, has soared in Canada. And so, like, to put that into kind of like perspective, and it's something that's been building for some time. July 2024, the peak of the 2024 summer job market, the number of youth working was basically the exact same as it was in July 2023. However, the population of youth in Canada jumped over 7% in that same time. So flat jobs amid soaring population growth, it's a bad recipe for youth employment conditions.
So generally speaking, or traditionally, because there are forecasts for a weakening economy, even a recession, and an overall unemployment rate that is going to go up and not down. When that happens, traditionally, with the broader labor market, what happens to these kinds of jobs, entry-level jobs for young people?
So the labor market is connected in just so many different ways across the economy. Seasonal, and that extends, for instance, from full-time permanent roles to temporary seasonal roles. When one area of the economy is shocked, other areas feel it. And we can actually see it looking at job postings on Indeed. So compared to 2023, which was still a quite solid job market, the decline in summer job postings that we've seen basically matches the decline in overall job postings that have happened over the same time. And so all these trends are unique, and they're all linked across both employer demand, but also among job seekers. One of the ways that youth get particularly hit during an economic downturn is sort of a traffic jam builds up in the economy. You have sort of like further up the job ladder, you have people struggling to kind of get ahead, people in career track jobs who change jobs to kind of like advance their careers. They find it difficult to make those moves. And that sort of slows the opening for those sort of more entry-level career track jobs for people to jump into. And there's kind of a cascading effect down where at the end of the line, you have youth, particularly teenagers, looking for just temporary work who aren't landing jobs because people who would have otherwise found better opportunities are still working in them, and then kind of youth and less experienced workers are left on the sidelines.
What are some potential, because it's kind of bleak right now, what are some potential bright spots? If you look across industries and youth are seeking employment opportunities, where should they be looking?
That's a good question, because in general, if we look across recreation, manual labor, customer service, they're all relatively weak in the service sector. I think in general now it's a good time to just like take stock of what your interests are and goals at the time, at this time, and then kind of like do the research. See what opportunities, are out there. Job search websites like Indeed, tapping into friends and family, personal networks, just for advice. And that's advice I would give in any type of labor market. The down labor market this year kind of should cause us to sort of adjust our expectations, but it's important also to use the time productively. If you're off on break during the summer, make the best of a bad situation. And one potential way is by sort of like thinking about longer term about the skills and interests you have like for your career goals going forward, and sort of like take action, whether it's volunteering or learning new skills that will help both in the short term and long term. These aren't sort of the best options. You know, people would rather be working, getting work experience, making some money, but it's important to make the best of a bad situation.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Great to hear from you today. Yeah, Brendan Bernard, senior economist at Indeed, the Indeed Hiring Lab.
The Newsday panel.
And the gang's all here. Neil Brody is a longtime conservative strategist and commentator. Welcome back, Neil. Good to hear from you.
Good afternoon, Rob.
Along with Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton. How are you, Nick?
Good, Rob. How are you?
I'm just great. So the Carney cabinet has been meeting for the last couple of days in Meech Lake on the Quebec side of the National Capital Region. The Prime Minister is scheduled to do a news conference in about 5 hours from now. What do you think they're talking about up there, Nick?
I would imagine it's a lesson in shut your mouth.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think that, the cabinet didn't probably get off to the best start with some differences on messaging. And we saw the Prime Minister have to come out and walk back some timelines on the budget. And, we all have heard what Gregor Robertson said, what Stephen Guilbeault has been out and said. So I think it's going to be a conversation centered around getting on message, figuring out who's leading what, and getting aligned on a path forward and priorities for this upcoming sitting.
Okay. Well, first of all, on the need for better messaging right out of the gate, Neil, can I get a comment from you on that, please?
Sure. Communication coordination is paramount for cabinet. Cabinet should speak with one voice. That's usually the written and unwritten rule. And so to have competing ministers go out with competing messages, either contradicting the PM or other ministers, is something that happens early in untested governments, if I can say it like that. The Conservatives had it certainly in 2006. I wouldn't be surprised if whoever's manning the role of Director of Communications isn't in there slamming the door hard on some people's fingers.
Okay. So on priorities, I mean, what are you expecting to hear, for example, from the Prime Minister or whoever else speaks at this news conference that's scheduled for 6:00 Eastern time on priorities? You mentioned priorities, Nick.
Yeah.
What are the big priorities for this government right now?
Yeah, I think they've telegraphed pretty early that they want to focus on that tax cut and getting that through. They'll also make sure to, I think in this short legislative sitting they have, focus on some of the regulatory barriers or at least the initial steps towards breaking down those regulatory barriers to the things they want to do. They've talked about increasing collaboration between port operators, for example. Well, what can they do in this short time to make sure that any legislation they need to put forward, is not stymied by red tape. Building more homes, hiring more doctors. That's not all going to happen right out the gate without changes to the way those policies are set up. So I would expect substantively we're going to see that tax cut to come through.
Okay.
Followed by maybe the introduction of a piece or two of legislation targeted at those things I mentioned.
So on regulatory barriers, you're talking about this self-imposed deadline of July 1st on interprovincial trade. Is that what you're talking about, Nick?
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
to go back to my own province, right, you've had a couple PEI MPs come out and say that Canada Day is a good deadline for things like the toll on the Confederation Bridge and ferry service to come down, as outlined in the platform. I think those are those little steps that I mean when I say cutting down regulation towards bigger goals. Is once you cut down those tolls, then interprovincial trade becomes ever more easier. So I think they're really looking towards that Canada Day deadline as a target to hit to get rid of those barriers.
Because I think, Neil, what people are looking for is like, what's the plan? You were hired to enact a plan. You said you had a plan for the biggest crisis of our lives. And last week, that plan didn't even include a budget. Well, now it does. Okay. Parliament resumes next week. You elect the speaker on Monday, the King's here on Tuesday, and then you've got 3 weeks to do something. I would expect the Prime Minister to outline his priorities for the next few weeks. What do you expect to hear on priorities from him, Mark Carney?
Well, sure. I mean, Mr. Carney's going to have to walk a fine line between telling us something this afternoon and giving King Charles, King of Canada, something to say next week in the throne speech. Typically, in a cabinet retreat agenda, there would be what's called a financial outlook by the finance minister, so that cabinet knows the financial position of the government clearly before entering a session of parliament. I assume that's going to happen for cabinet ministers if it's not going to happen for Canadians. So it'd be nice for Mr. Carney to give us a short readout of the financial position of the government, seeing as the financial year of the government ended March 31st. There should be some initial stuff. Another thing would be some talk about, as Nick said, the legislative agenda. There were a few pieces of legislation from the Trudeau government hanging around: the Online Harms Act, the AI bill, the Telecom Security Act. These are all things that Mr. Carney has talked about as priorities since the election. So hopefully there'd be some update on that. and an update on how negotiations are going with the U.S. Because, as you said, Rob, he ran on that during the election. He had the best plan to deal with the Americans. He's been down there to meet Mr. Trump. He's done a whirlwind tour of Europe over the last weekend, getting input from various leaders there. It's a few short weeks now until the G7. It'd be nice to know what Canada's priorities are now rather than later.
Okay, we'll be right back. Neil, it's usually the conservatives who like to eat their own and do in their own leaders, at least in recent political history. Now there are reports that the Liberals and their MPs might be open to passing what's known as the Reform Act, which would make it easier for a caucus to oust a party leader. What do you think the chances are of that? Why would they be considering it?
Well, I'd lay the chances at 50-50, which is the highest level of chance that the Liberals will pass it since the Reform Act was brought into being. I would say that Mr. Carney's team is probably out right now talking to all the brand new, shiny Liberal MPs who were just elected, who owe their jobs to Mr. Carney, to try and perhaps convince them not to bring in provisions that would allow the caucus to oust Mr. Carney at their leisure. I suspect that the Pro-Reform Act coalition is being led by former Housing Minister Nate Erskine-Smith, playing the role of jilted love interest in the newspapers. Right. I expect he will be leading the charge to bring about the enactment of the Reform Act. I suspect that the wild cards will be Wayne Long and Joel Lightbound, who were two MPs in 2024 who were looking to get Mr. Trudeau out as soon as possible. Of course, they've both been appointed, one to Secretary of State for Revenue and Financial Institutions, and Mr. Lightbound to Minister of Public Works and Procurement. I haven't done the exact crosswalk of the, whatever it was, 20 or so MPs who had signed a letter in December last year.
Oh, yes.
Calling for Mr. Trudeau to step aside for the betterment of the party. I suspect they still have scars of having a leader stay around too long. So I put the chance at 50-50 that there's enough interest in the Liberal caucus to make sure that there's a button on the eject seat release for Mr. Carney if it needs to be used.
Okay, 50-50. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I'd agree with Neil's assessment at 50-50. And to add to that list, I'll say Charlottetown MP Sean Casey was one of those first Atlantic MPs that came out and said it was time for Trudeau to step down. And, Mr. Casey did allude at that time to the idea that we wouldn't be in this mess if we had adopted the Reform Act. And that's the point that I've been making when I speak to other Liberals, is that 6 months ago, the Liberal Party was in the position where they were going to lose an election simply because, maybe this is a bit reductionist, but because we didn't adopt the Reform Act. The party's fortunes were very much put on the shoulder of Justin Trudeau, and they died with his political career because he didn't step down early enough, and because the party didn't have a mechanism to remove him. And so I understand the position that Mr. Carney's camp would be coming in as well. He won a resounding victory to be leader, and there's no need to oust him. But at the same time, I don't think that the Liberal Party is going to have the same infighting that we might see from the Conservative Party of late. And I think that it shows a good sign of a healthy democratic balance within the Liberal Party, and that Carney as leader can't have unchecked power. I would count myself amongst some of those Liberals that would think that the Reform Act is probably needed in today's Liberal Party.
Just further to something that Neil brought up, Nate Erskine-Smith, who was going to leave federal politics, but then he was named the housing minister in the dying hours of the Trudeau government. So he reconsidered, and then he ran again, and then he was dropped from cabinet. He didn't make the cut in this cabinet, and he said that he felt disrespected. In a column in the Toronto Star, Nick, by Martin Reg Cohen, Nate Erskine-Smith is he's called a punchline. He's become a punchline among liberals in quote the halls of power, and that he is now the butt of jokes because of his complaining about being left out. I mean, would that be your read on things?
I don't know about being the butt of jokes, but what I will say about Nate is I think it's a little foolhardy to run in an election with the assumption that you're going to make it in cabinet. Cabinet positions are the top level of serving at the pleasure, right? And if the prime minister decides that you're not fit to be in cabinet, or he doesn't want you in cabinet, or he wants someone else in cabinet, then he has no onus to keep you in cabinet. Now, I'm not privy to the conversations that Nathaniel Erskine-Smith and Mark Carney had, or Erskine-Smith and Trudeau had. I don't know what was said there, but I think it's a bit on the nose with how Erskine-Smith has kind of carried himself in the previous parliament to then start this current parliament with a statement like that. Butt of the joke.
But he is kind of he was kind of seen as like a rising someone to watch. I would say he was someone to watch in like liberal circles. But this column suggests now that he's burned his bridges. He's burned his bridges with the federal liberals, under Carney, and he's burned his bridges with the Ontario Liberals because even though he was an MP, he left to go run for the Ontario Liberal leadership when that job was open.
Yeah,
he's
I
just kind of torched his political future here.
Well, that's what happens when you just continually try to chase power, right? Is he's been doing that and not been successful, and probably not been successful for a good reason. And I don't know what the path forward is for him here, if he's going to sit as an MP or not. But he's kind of made his bed, and he's got to lay in it.
Okay, got to lay in it now. Okay. When we come back, we'll talk about what may lay ahead for Pierre Poilievre as he tries to stay relevant and top of mind, even though he doesn't have his pulpit in the House of Commons anymore. So Pierre Poilievre, no seat in the House of Commons, lost his riding on election night, by-election pending for sometime this summer, one would think. So how does he try and stay relevant, part of the political dialogue during his absence from the House, Neil Brody?
Well, this might sound counterintuitive, but I don't think he needs to. In fact, I don't think he should be necessarily in Ottawa or the House of around the House of Commons or in large political circles for the next 6 months. He needs to rebrand himself to a, whatever you want to call it, kinder, gentler Pierre Poilievre. And I think one of the ways to do that is to get out into the public, go across Canada, little towns, big cities, downtown core of urban centers, places where the Conservatives need to pick up support, and just go into restaurants or food courts or stand on the sidewalk and talk to people and get people to see you as a regular, normal, down-to-earth Canadian who has good ideas about running the country. Unfortunately, the downside of that advice, if he were ever to listen to it, is that leaves Andrew Scheer as the public face of the Conservative Party in Ottawa, and I don't think that necessarily does the Conservatives well in the big picture of things.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. What do you think, Nick, about that?
Yeah, I think he's got a tricky situation in front of him where he's got to be also present in the riding that he wants to run in, and whether or not that's a safe Conservative riding. I think it says a lot about his leadership in the Conservative Party, depending on how much time he's seen spending there versus in other parts of the country. And I think that there's going to be, to Neil's point, very explicit competition between Andrew Scheer and Pierre Poilievre to be the face of Conservative messaging. It's a hard situation, and this is kind of the reality that they're faced with in terms of being the opposition and needing to hold the government to account both in the House and outside of the House. There's a dual. There's competing priorities here that's going to make it tricky for the Conservative government to or the Conservatives' opposition, rather, to hold the government to account.
But isn't that going to be just a month-long thing? I mean, the House of Commons won't even be sitting a month from now, right? So will that give Pierre Poilievre more, say, political freedom in his role as the Conservative leader because the House won't be in session and it won't be Andrew Scheer leading off questions in question period or what have you? Nick?
Potentially, but I mean, what parties are doing these days with their digital strategies is clipping those debates in the House of Commons, right? And so even if the House only sits for a few weeks, those clips and those sound bites are going to live for longer.
But his goal has to be, I'll see you in the fall, right, Neil? I'll see you in the fall.
You, Mr. Poilievre?
Yeah, Mr. Poilievre.
Yeah, for sure. Listen,
right?
When Mr. Trudeau was anointed leader of the Liberal Party, he didn't spend too much time in Ottawa. I suspect he was out meeting Canadians, testing his message, making sure it was attuned to what Canadians wanted to hear. That worked very well for him in a three-party system. As we enter an era now in Canada of a two-party federal system, the Conservatives have to appeal to a larger part of the middle of the political spectrum. Mr. Carney was able to do that relatively well. Mr. Poilievre was moving towards that near the end of the election period. But if he's going to fight...
I can see that chapter in his book, Neil, because we'll have to wrap things up. How I spent my summer. Learning about the center. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob. Have a good day, Mike.
Yeah, Neil Brody and Nick McRoberts, our Newsday panelists today. Talkback coming up. Going to talk about summer jobs today on Talkback with your help right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, youth unemployment and summer jobs. Youth unemployment and summer jobs. We'd love to hear from you on this at 1-833-668-2577. It's a big issue. And we want to talk about it today with your help. Again, 1-833-668-2577. We have phone lines available right now. We'd love to hear from you. It is apparently brutal out there right now for young people looking for summer jobs, looking for full-time work, part-time work, any kind of work. There have been lots of news reports about this in the last week or so. It's that time of year, after all, school year winding down, especially in post-secondary. But other, high schoolers out there trying to land a gig for the summer, maybe get some money in the pocket. So we want to pick your brain about it, get some ideas as to what you think is going on, what you might be hearing from the young people in your life or in your social circle. If you know someone who's been out there trying to find some gainful employment in the last little while, I mean, what is that like? Any luck or no luck at all? I mean, the headlines of late on this topic are not encouraging. In fact, they're pretty bleak. And we spoke with a labor economist yesterday, or rather earlier today, from Indeed.com, and said, yeah, it's not great. Toughest labor market in decades for young people, says the Toronto Star. I'll work anywhere. Students struggle to find jobs across Atlantic Canada, says the Halifax Chronicle Herald. I'll work anywhere. Recession fears cooling the job market as students struggle to find summer work, says the CBC. Young people being left behind. And the headlines go on and on and on. The long-term consequences of youth unemployment. Youth unemployment at a decade high. Summer jobs, especially hard to come by. The summer job drought. So, I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's a real thing, and it's a problem. And it could be a serious problem with long-term consequences. Summer jobs. I mean, you think about this when you were young, okay? That summer job. Traditionally an opportunity for young people. Get their foot in the door somewhere, doing something. Learning what it's like to be in the working world. Learning about things like teamwork and responsibility, a chance for people to learn some lifelong skills, to make connections, to become more independent and, make some money. It's always a bonus. Gain some financial independence. Spread their wings and fly. But it's tough out there. It's tough out there. The national unemployment rate, according to the latest report, was 6.9%. That was the national unemployment rate. But for young people, and Stats Canada say young people, 15 to 24, the unemployment rate is 14.1%. 14.1%. So it's more than double. The youth unemployment rate, it's always higher than the national unemployment rate, but the youth unemployment rate is now more than double the national unemployment rate. We have in this country almost 500,000 Canadians in that age group, 15 to 24 years old, who could be working and most likely would like to be working, but they aren't working because the jobs aren't out there. Almost 500,000 Canadians, young Canadians, and that's 50,000 more than this time last year. And we have been told by at least one economist, and there's another economic report out today that says the company is headed for a rough patch, could be a recession. The unemployment rate is going to go up, and things in the labor market are going to get worse before they get better. So let's talk about this. Young people, summer jobs, some questions for you to kind of get the conversation going today for another Talkback. If you know a young person looking for a job, what has that job search been like for them? Any luck? No luck at all? If young people don't land these kinds of jobs, summer jobs, first jobs, what would you say they're missing out on? If you hire young people or have hired young people in the past, what's been your experience? Positive? Negative? Do you find they're ready to work, willing to work, hardworking? Give us a sense of that. And for older people who may want to go down memory lane, we like doing this. What kind of summer jobs have you had? What did you learn from those jobs? And, how much were you making at the time? Be curious to know. We love throwing in a little nostalgia every now and then. Summer jobs, part-time jobs for young people. Our topic of the day, the call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Save that number in your phone. And if you have never called us before, just mention that to us. We'll make your call a priority. Summer jobs. In short supply for young people. If you know a person looking for a job, what has that job search been like? Let's hear from you. Donna in Calgary is up first today on Talkback. Hi there, Donna.
Hi.
Hi, Donna.
Well, I don't have any children or grandchildren that are students looking for work, but based on what you just said, if that contract goes through and accepted by Canada or by the workers, then students should go to Canada Post. But anyways.
Start delivering parcels on the weekends, for example.
Well, it's part-time. But yeah, that's probably
part-time with benefits and a pension. Part-time with benefits and a pension at that.
Well, it's a start.
Where do you get that?
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know, what the job market is, and obviously if they're having
rough.
problems.
Yeah.
I do know that in the past years here, we've had students, come to the door and shovel your walk or do this and that. And one particular one, he cleans our cars. It's me and my daughter's car. And he's been doing it since he was in high school, and he does a really great job. And he reaches out every May. We've had both our cars done, and I was talking to him, and he's in college now, and it helps pay his way.
Okay.
And he does both cars, and his prices have gone up, But I believe, he still gives us a good deal. It was $120 for both cars.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
You can get your car detailed for $120. But I would just tell the students that, hey, that is a good deal for them. Like, it's 2 hours roughly he spends on a car, and he walks away after 4 hours with $120 in his pocket. We got a good deal, and he's got that. I'm sure, he's not claiming it. It's cash in his pocket.
Really? Okay.
There's not a lot of part-time jobs that you're going to get like that.
Yeah. And he created his own that way. Very industrious. Yes.
And, yes. And I asked him what he was taking, business and finance. And I thought, well, yeah, he's got the smarts
He's
for
well
it.
on his way
But
by the sound of it. Yeah.
I think if students are motivated, a lot of people are they're cutting back too. It's hard times for everybody. And they'd rather, hire a student. It's a better deal for them, a better deal for the student. There's lots of things, we get someone to cut our grass and pick up dog poop, but, they get paid for it. But, all adds up. If they have, regular customers, houses that they do, they can make a lot of money in a day.
Very good.
So,
Very good, Donna. Thank you for the call. I'm going to run along because our phone lines are actually jammed on this topic. I'm very encouraged to see that. Let's go to Luke on line 2. Luke, hi there.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Luke. How are you?
Not bad. So
Good.
One of the things I wanted to kind of point out that nobody ever really mentions around this topic, especially for guys like me in the construction industry who are hiring, one of the big problems is occupational health and safety.
Okay.
The reason it's a problem is because occupational health and safety says that I'm responsible for the health and safety of all my workers, which I don't necessarily disagree with, obviously, for obvious reasons. But when you have a 15-year-old that was out drinking all night and he shows up to work half in the bag, but he knows all the tricks to look sober, and then he gets hurt, it falls on the employer, right? Why wasn't he this? Why wasn't he that?
Okay.
It becomes too much of a risk for me to want to hire these guys.
I see. Okay.
And
do
the
you see
guys
that a
around
lot?
me, they all agree.
Would you say you see that a lot, Luke? Or
everyone I talk to, we don't want to hire these kids anymore.
Okay.
Now, the other reason for that is because, saying that they're lazy is, I guess, too easy. They're unmotivated. They come out, they don't understand. I think maybe it's the way they're teaching them in school with a lack of critical thinking, or I'm like, I can't tell you what it specifically is.
Okay.
But, the kid I have right now, he wanted to be part-time. I said, fine. He cut a hose last week, which means he's not paying attention to how he's using his X-Acto knife. Yesterday, he shot the hose with the nail gun, which means he doesn't know where the nails are going.
Wow.
Right? It's important.
Sounds like you've got me working for you.
Well, maybe, but I don't know. But you know what I mean? If he
you don't want me on your job site. I'll tell you that,
right.
Luke. Okay. Not motivated enough. Maybe not serious enough. Not taking the job seriously enough. I got you, Luke. Thank you.
Not
okay.
bad.
Yeah. I all well and good. Got to run. A bit tight on time today. Donna in Calgary. Hi, Donna.
Hello.
Hi, Donna. Good to hear from you, Donna.
Hi. I have 3 kids,
Yeah.
age range 16 to 22. They
Right.
all are employed, but it was
Okay.
a full-time job finding a job.
It was. Okay.
Yeah. So the oldest is third-year engineering student, could not find an internship in his area in Calgary. He eventually applied for AI training for a company, and he's just started doing that just to give it a try. But he's worked in landscaping every summer for the last 3 summers, or Costco at the gas station. And all 3 years they've said they've hired him because of being a referee in hockey. And they knew that he was dedicated and he could, especially working at the gas station in Costco, he could stand up to people.
Right.
And so if the AI thing doesn't work out, he's going to go back to landscaping at the business he worked at last year. He just showed up on site on Monday morning and they hired him.
Isn't that something? But you say it's a full-time job, just looking for a job now. That's really
My
interesting.
middle son goes to UVic, and he applied for 50 internships and got one offer in Calgary.
Wow.
And
50.
it wasn't his preferred place to work, but he took it because he needs to have something.
Something, yeah, okay.
Last year he worked at a brewery, loved it, but that doesn't fulfill his internship requirements.
Requirements,
Again,
okay.
he's worked at Winsport, he's worked at other camps. They all hired him because he was a referee from the age of 14 to 16.
Okay, so
I'm
there's something
telling
about
people,
that helps,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, well, they know that you can stand up for yourself. You show up. You are managing yourself. You don't have a supervisor. You're kind of self-employed. And I've told many of my friends, get your kid into refereeing or umpiring because they're desperate. They will accept anyone. You'll get trained, and it will look fantastic on your resume.
Okay, all right. Well, that's really interesting. That's great advice, actually. That might be.
And my daughter has
might be
refereed
news you
as
can
well.
use, as we say around here. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter has refereed as well, and she got a job easily working in retail, and they put her on the till like the first day because they just said, we know you must be competent. So
that's something.
It's
very good.
It's a really good thing to do because you don't have to interview to be a referee or an umpire. They're desperate. They will train you. They will assign you jobs. You go out and they pay you $30 to $50 a game.
Yeah. Isn't that something? I've never heard of that before. That's so interesting. Thank you so much for your call today. I'm glad it's all worked out for you and your kids. Be right back after the latest breaking news. Talking about summer jobs today with the news report saying summer jobs are very rare for young people. Really tight labor market for young people looking for summer jobs, trying to get that foot in the door in the workplace. If you have any experience with this, give us a call, 1-833-668-2577. Tell us what you're seeing out there. Wayne in Calgary's up next. Hi, Wayne.
Hello. How's Rob today?
Oh, very good, Wayne. It could warm up a bit, but we're good in these parts.
No kidding. We're in the same boat. I'm in Calgary, as you know, and the weather's been crummy. I have a solution.
You do? Okay.
I have a solution.
Love to hear
solutions. This would be a golden opportunity for the armed forces to put some sort of a program together that works around our youth schedules. So get them in the military. We're short people. Pay them half decent. Pay them a competitive wage, part-time or full-time, and get people, let's start filling up our military.
I love it. Recruitment drive. Like a youth recruitment drive.
One of the biggest problems with our armed forces is they're not competitive. So you had an article or you had a show earlier this week having to do with teachers. My daughter's 27. She's a teacher. She's been in it for 2 years. She hates it because of everything that was discussed in the week. Abuse of children, no support, lack of discipline. She's actually looked at the Navy. And,
really?
And she'd go in as an officer.
Yeah.
And she's also looking at a trade. She doesn't want to continue teaching.
Okay.
So, you know, she's the one who got me thinking about the military. She'd be a great officer. See the world. Great training. You know, I think,
and we need the people, right? We need the people. We need desperately.
Now, I put a lot of this on the military because the military has not. It's not an appeal. Hasn't found ways to be competitive in the open market. They have not. But what a golden opportunity for all concerned.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, you say, well, you know, the military hasn't done a great job, but what has the military had to sell itself? Hey, come join the Canadian Armed Forces where the pay is lousy and the equipment sucks. Isn't that the general impression? Right.
But instead, what they could be doing, and they've never done this, is come and join the armed forces, learn a trade that is transferable to civil. And
To the private
that's the other
sector?
big-
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
other big issue because Rob, I'm a pilot, and
You're a pilot, okay.
I'm retired now, and the civil aviation licenses were never transferable from the military. So you're in the military, so it's a big turnoff. It was a turnoff to go in the military and then come out and not have a civil aviation license, even though you might be flying transports or
Right.
whatever.
Okay.
But so find ways to make those skills transferable to the civil network, to the civil
To the civil workforce. Yeah.
and get people trades, train people to be electricians and plumbers and what have you.
Sure. Yeah. I love that idea. That's such a great idea. Wayne, you should pitch that to your local MP, Wayne. Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you today.
My local MP is useless. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, all right. Okay. Eric in Halifax is up next. Hi, Eric.
Hey, good afternoon, Rob. How are you?
Hey, Eric. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Long
That's
time no
good.
hear from because I've been busy with my stats. So.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Your women's hockey team's going to win the PWHL Stanley
Oh, they're
Cup.
looking good. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
But here's 59 years ago, I was taken to Ontario, and I went to work for a winery.
Oh,
and
really?
I used to get paid cash in an envelope. Now, that wasn't yesterday. I mean, now you get checks, and now you get your money deposited. But I used to get my money in a little envelope, and I stayed there for 9 years.
Wow.
And I did a lot of other jobs beside that. I wasn't scared to go and find work because back in the late 60s, early 70s, there was all kinds of jobs. But I agree with Wayne. The kids today should go to the forces, get all the training they can, and then and only then will they make a success of themselves. And I don't know how you feel about all that.
Well, let me ask you: when you went to Ontario to work in the wineries, I mean, like, how old were you when you did that?
I was 16 years old.
16 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
And what kind of jobs were you doing?
Hard work.
Oh, I bet.
mean, you had one load trucks of grapes, and I ended up staying 9 seasons with that company. Then they hired me to work in the bottling room, so my persistence paid off, and they gave me a job in the bottling room. But I had a lot of jobs after that. I mean, the best job I ever had up there was a manager. I was a manager of theater of a drive-in.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I've done a lot of things since that. I mean,
bet.
my final job was working for the city of Halifax, and I stayed there for 21 years, and the rest is history.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, you
my
said you were
advice to the
sent
kids
there. I
today-
mean, what do you mean you were sent there? Like, you were sent there?
Okay, without getting into too much, I used to bug my aunt and uncle to take me to Ontario because that's where I was born. And my dad would say, "No, you're not going. He's not going. He's only 14 years old." They kept coming back, and at 16, he said, "Okay, take him. He's been bugging me for 2 years. Take him to Ontario."
Right.
So I went to Ontario.
And they put you to work.
And I'm sitting with my aunt and uncle, and my uncle said to me, "Don't you think you're going to get, beat yourself down in this room? Get out and find a job." And that's when I went to the winery, and the rest is history.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tougher. It's tougher out there for kids now, especially, in a winery, for example. I mean, a lot of that job might be imported labor. That's an industry where they bring in a lot of people from overseas.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know I had to compete with a lot of people working
in the temporary foreign worker program. I mean, that was the idea.
I mean, I really did my first job when I was only about 13 or 14. I used to get paid $5 a week for hauling groceries.
Right.
And I'll tell you, it was a
Well,
lot
even
harder
those
than
jobs
it is
aren't
now.
around
You
anymore.
didn't get plastic bags or a bag. You got a 50-pound bag of potatoes and stuff like that. I mean,
Sure.
you worked.
Yeah.
And
I got you.
I ended up
I got
giving
you.
me $25 a week. That's how good I was. So
Good for you.
the kids could do it. You just got to, start. You got to start from the bottom. You can't expect to go into, an executive job.
Yeah,
or,
Well, that's kind of the worry right now, and I got to run, Eric, a bit tight on time. Thank you for your call. It's the labor market is what it is now for these summer jobs. you can't even get in at the bottom, and that's what we're discussing today. 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the summer job market for young people. If you know a young person looking for a job, what's their job search like? Any luck? No luck? If you hire young people or have hired young people in the past, what's been your experience? What are some of the summer jobs you've had over the course of your lifetime? What'd you take away from those jobs? What did you learn from those jobs? Gary's up next. Gary's in Kitchener. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Rob. You should
Gary.
get your producer to play some BTO or Guess Who or something during the breaks instead of that digital music. But anyway.
Well, imagine having to listen to it as often as I listen to it, sir. What that must be like for one's own mental health. I hear that music, sir, in my sleep. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm here in Kitchener, like you said, and
yeah,
I got a 19-year-old son, and he was struggling to find a job during high school, and was lucky enough to find one that gave him like 2 4-hour shifts a week. But it's the immigration policies of our government that have flooded the job market with people that are desperate for jobs.
Yeah, I knew it would be only a matter of time before that came up, the immigration issue.
Well, it's got to be true. These people, they need jobs. I don't mean these people, but everybody needs a job, and everybody's searching for a job.
Yeah, and even our labor economist that we had on a couple of hours ago said, look, the number of job positions 2023 to 2024 remained flat for the youth in the youth market, like 15 to 24. But the population of 15 to 24-year-olds in Canada went up 7%.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't matter what your age is. You're desperate for a job. So
sure.
People need a job.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you about when I was younger, my first job, I was actually a pin setter. Can you believe that? In a bowling
at a bowling alley? Yeah.
Yeah, I set pins.
Holy cow.
for 8 cents a game.
8 cents a game. Wow. Yeah. Was that considered decent money back in the day? What would you?
Well, if I worked a whole night and did two teams of league play, I would make $8.44.
$8.44. Holy
that was
cow.
Back in that'd be the early 70s.
Sure.
And I blew it all on chocolate milk and French fries.
That you probably bought at the canteen at the bowling alley, maybe.
Yeah, right on.
Those were the days. Okay, thank you. Yeah, immigration. Thank you for your call, Gary. Let's go to Johnny in Kitchener is up next. Hi, Johnny.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm good, Johnny. How are you?
As good as you can be on a little rainy day.
Yeah, the weather could be better for sure.
Sure. Yeah, so I have a couple thoughts on it. Not too recently, I myself was out there looking for a summer job, kind of in the midst of COVID. So you can imagine it was pretty tough in those times. And in particular for myself, because I was in the environmental field, right? So trying to find a position with like a conservation authority or something like that, or the government, they pretty much abolished all of their programs at that time. So what I did is I just went on LinkedIn and found a little posting up there for painting. I think it helps to keep an open mind and don't look at work as being something that's beneath you. At the end of the day, it was a pretty fun summer painting, outdoor, indoor, and developed a good skill. Now, if I could give a little piece of advice to young folk out there who are trying to be creative in getting a summer job, take the time to find somebody who's establishing a career and get them to give you some feedback on developing your cover letter and resume. I know it might sound cliche, or they're hearing it in the schools. I don't necessarily think that your careers class is the best place to get feedback on that sort of thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, like, and I find too, these young folk, they don't necessarily think that they need to be putting a cover letter together when they're applying for, let's say, a part-time job at Walmart or something like that, right? But something simple like that will set you apart from the other folks who are applying without one. And in fact, that's one thing that my former boss at the painting place, he was like, "Oh man, this is great. I've never seen anybody submit one for a job like this. That's so professional." And
Right.
Waxing poetic.
And it set you apart. It set you apart, right?
Of course.
Maybe
right?
that guy had a dozen other names who filled out applications or whatever, but you were the only one who actually took the time to do a resume and cover letter. And, so he was like, well, this is obviously someone who's a little bit more serious than the rest of these people. So.
For sure. Yeah. The effort helps. And I would say another piece of advice, not the most glorious thing, but there's times where I've needed work. I went to staffing agencies. Right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
And they've put me in a place, as long as you don't mind. Typically it seems they're putting folks in, manufacturing of some sort of factory work, but factory work tends to be really consistent. Every factory I've been in has given opportunities for overtime. And they can pretty much do the work for you, right? So
okay,
if you're if you're really desperate, try that avenue.
Thanks, Johnny. Great call, Johnny. Yeah, great advice there. Be right back. We're talking summer jobs today on Talkback on News Radio. Grassy in Cochrane. Hello, Grassy.
Hello.
Hi, Grassy.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
That's good. I'm good. All the better for hearing from you. What's your opinion, please?
I wanted to say I came to Canada as a teenager, and after 1 year of being here in Vancouver, I could barely speak English. But my sister-in-law, who was American, she pretty much took me by the hand and walked me about 2 kilometers down the street and walked me into Wendy's Hamburgers and said, "You're applying for a job." And
really?
I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so, and I got the job. She helped me.
Good for you.
She helped me get the job. I got the job, and it was probably one of the best things, like for my self-confidence and
Sure.
And I think, young people are lacking that kind of direction where, their parents they're not saying, okay, you got to go get a job now. And especially with the resident workers taking all the jobs that the teenagers could have. Not that I'm not saying I'm against that. I'm just saying that there could be like an opening for teenagers in those areas in fast food places.
Yes.
But the employers are probably hesitant about hiring teenagers for a season because they're looking for full-time workers, right? So,
yeah, maybe something more permanent. Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, we can talk about that in hour number 2. I wanted to get into the whole immigration side of that and how this is. I mean, you can't talk about this topic, the shortage of jobs for young people, because there is an obvious immigration side to the whole story.
Yes.
Right.
And my other like startup job is when I moved to Calgary.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a car, but in Vancouver, you could take the transit, right?
Yeah.
But when I moved to Calgary, there's no way you can live in Calgary without a car. Somehow, like that. It was in the 90s. So,
in the 90s. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't have the money to buy a car, so I actually went into the car dealers, and I picked up a whole bunch of products for detailing. I know somebody else was talking about their detailing.
And you started cleaning cars?
And I told him I would clean the cars for him, detail them, the ones that they were bringing in, and that would pay for and I would be paying for a car that I bought from them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And did they go for that?
Yeah.
They
I
did.
worked for them for a few years. Like
Oh, you worked for them for a few years?
basis.
Wow, isn't that something?
A couple of cars.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Wild
so-
stories. Okay, look, we got to run. They're playing the music. I really thank you for your call. You sound like a really industrious person. 1-833-668-2577. We'll be back with the second hour of Talkback right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
We have been talking about the labor market with a specific focus on summer jobs today for young people. And we've been asking questions like, if you know a young person looking for a job, what's their job search been like? Have they had any luck? Why did they have some luck? If they're not having any luck, what do you think is going on there? If people don't land these kinds of jobs when they're young, I mean, what are they missing out on? When you think back to when you were just starting out with your working life, if you hire young people, if you've hired young people in the past, what's been your experience? What kind of summer jobs have you had in the past? What did you learn from those jobs? Let's go to Glenn in Halifax, who's been waiting. Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Glenn. Go ahead.
Yeah, great topic. I got a bit to say on it. I'll try not to say too much. But I'm a teacher, and I've supervised students on their co-op.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to teach them some skills that they can take with them and create their own jobs, building sheds, building washer toss, selling them picnic tables, things like that.
Right.
But I wanted to call in and talk about the reserves. I just tuned in. Hopefully nobody's talked about this topic yet, but the reserves are out there. And, you know, when I was a kid, I walked down the recruiting office and it was as simple as that.
Okay. And so for the reserves, like what's involved there with the reserves? To give me a little bit more information about that, if you have any at hand.
Yeah, I do. So typically, I mean, regardless, depending on when you get in, there's different opportunities. So when I joined, it was September. Every Tuesday night, I'd go in for training, and you get paid for half a day.
Okay.
Probably, $60. And then every weekend, there was opportunities that you could either take or not take, depending on your schedule. And then you could get 2.5 days pay there. So it's really flexible throughout the year. You just need to dedicate that, Tuesday evening or Thursday evening or whatever. But then when May comes, there's contracts for the whole summer. So,
oh, really? Okay.
Especially if you're in university or even if you're in high school, there's work all summer.
Doing things like what?
So learning your trade. So you could be like basic training would be a great example. So your first year, you would go away, do your basic training. You get paid for that whole thing, right? As well as room and board and all that. And then as you progress, there's different levels that you need to, do in your trade. And the thing I'd like to mention that's really important is that, yeah, there's armored, there's infantry, but there's a lot of desk jobs. There's a lot of computer jobs. There's a lot of admin jobs. And those skills, just, you take them with you.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you're in the reserves, is there any, any other military obligation that comes with that within the forces?
And the neat thing is once you're in, there's job postings that come out all the time. So for example, you can choose to go overseas. The first week I was in, one of the opportunities that came across, they go over them each Tuesday night or whatever. It was a photographer in Egypt. So, there's jobs like that come up, or you can literally go to serve in Afghanistan. So there's reservists.
Yeah, but I guess, but my point is because, and I'm not clear on this, so maybe you can clear this up.
Yeah.
What can the forces say? Okay, you're in the reserves. We need people, so we're sending you to Haiti or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's never
even
happened
if you don't want to go.
Yeah, no, that hasn't happened in Canada. It's interesting because when I first applied, I went to my university professor and I said, I'd like a letter of reference. And he said, I don't want to give you one. He was a psychiatrist who worked with veterans coming back from Vietnam. So at the time, Private Ryan was out. He said, go and watch Private Ryan and try to think about what it's really like, and then come back and we'll discuss it. But he said, the reason I don't want you to go in is because you could be called up. So in the States, that's a thing. Happens all the time. I know lots of people that got called up and didn't want to go. But it isn't or hasn't been a thing in Canada.
So let me ask you one more thing, and then we'll have to wrap things up and get along to other callers. How old do you have to be? What's the age requirement?
16.
16.
So you're right in high school. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Great information, Glenn. Yeah. Thank you so much. John in Waterloo up next. Hello, John.
Hi. Yes.
Hi, John.
Hi. I'm calling in regards to, I am an employer, and I employ 70 people around Waterloo region in the restaurant industry.
Yes.
One thing that I want to discuss is the fact that a lot of these youngsters coming in have jobs that are available to them that they just don't want to do. So myself, I'm in the restaurant industry, and I will post a job for help wanted for a dishwasher, for instance.
Yeah.
A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, absolutely no one will apply. Then I'll post it publicly through any of the sites, and I will get bombarded with international students looking for work.
Right.
There's also that portion of it where there's kids that just don't want specific jobs. And this has happened in a few of my establishments where it is, we're looking for people to work. We'll post it on Facebook, through our website, through all sorts of things, and try to get people to come out. And a lot of these youngsters won't. It's beneath them. They
don't want to do the work.
That job. Correct.
Right.
And then you get these international kids that are coming through, and they are begging for work. And usually in the restaurant industry, everyone starts at the bottom, works their way up. A lot of these kids, a lot of these international students are now online. They're cooking, or they move to front of house where they're a server. So there's always opportunities to move within businesses, but these youngsters are just not interested in doing these kind of jobs.
Isn't that interesting? Okay. Yeah. I wanted to talk about that a little bit more as we make our way through this hour, because it's going to be obvious for a lot of people, John, people are going to say, well, the jobs that whatever I had when I was working at a fast food place when I was 17, that job's been taken by somebody who just came to the country. What you're saying is, no, that job's available. It's just people like the 17-year-old version of me is not applying for them.
Absolutely. And it is happening every day. And I'm in the industry. I employ 70 people.
I hear you.
I do not get those resumes for the dishwasher position, but I will get the international resumes for the dishwasher position. So that's all.
Very interesting. Yeah, no, John, I'm so glad that you brought that up. It's one of the issues that's just like staring everybody in the face on a topic like this. Thank you. We'll be right back. Susan in Kitchener up next on Talkback on the summer job market for young people. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Rob. Just a couple things I want to augment what your last caller said about the reserves. My son was in the reserves for a number of years. It was an amazing experience for him. He got to go to Latvia. Many countries were there on training exercises. He specialized in infantry. He got to go up on an Arctic expedition with his troops to learn how to, survive up in the north if there was a need for, whatever up there.
Like a mobilization or what have you. Sure. Yeah.
He got to work at a G7 summit.
Oh, cool.
Flooding. I think there was flooding in Quebec. He didn't go, but some of his other buddies went down to help with flooding. Then he would meet once a week. It was a Thursdays. And on the weekends, they had opportunities then to go up to Nefer for a weekend and do exercise training. He also got to do some PSYOPs training, which was absolutely invaluable to him. He learned so much there. Was it easy? Absolutely not. It built character, endurance, long-lasting friendships. So I think it's a great opportunity if any young boys or girls are interested in that.
And what is your son doing now?
He's in HVAC.
Oh, he's in HVAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
so not in the military. Not in the
No,
military.
not. I mean, he had an opportunity to join the reg forces, but he chose not to. He was in probably for 8 to 10 years in the reserves, and you know, his life got busy, so he stopped.
Okay.
But it was a really positive experience.
And how old would he have been, if you don't mind, Susan? How old was he when he first got in?
I'm going to say 17-ish.
Yeah, and how did you feel about that at the time when he expressed
I was shocked when he said, "Mom, I'm going to go join the reserves." I was shocked, but I mean, we have previous military members in my family, so you know, it was a really good experience for him.
That's good. Great stuff, Susan. Okay.
Yeah, and on the flip side too, about the fast food workers, both of my kids worked at McDonald's, and they both say that was the best job for learning that they've ever had. They learned how to.
That was my.
Yeah.
It wasn't my first job. It was my first real job, I would say, where I had to actually, you know, punch the clock and stuff like that. I had some odd jobs before that, working at bingo halls and stuff. But I mean, they opened a McDonald's in our town. Yeah. I've told this before. Yeah. And my father said, "You're going to go apply there because I'm not giving you money anymore." I was 15 or something at the time. And boy, they teach you how to work at McDonald's. I'll tell you that.
They teach you how to work. You have to learn to work as a team. You learn how to deal with customers, irate customers. Yeah. They both became managers and learned how to deal with, you know, doing a bank deposit and dealing with people who are calling in sick. And, you know, it really taught them a lot. So there's
time to lean is time to clean. Time to lean is time to clean.
And I mean, McDonald's is always hiring.
Oh, they're always hiring. Yeah. Thank you, Susan.
Okay,
that's great. Rob. Great stuff. Yeah. Josh in Waterloo up next. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Joe, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Now, I'll speak. So I'm a 19-year-old. I'm a student here. I go to university down in Ontario, St. Catherine's Way. And I just want to say I've had a lot of jobs, lifeguarding. I've worked in a kitchen where I've done landscaping. I referee hockey, umpire baseball, a bunch of hard, like nitty-gritty kind of gotta work for your money kind of jobs. And there's my buddies, and they don't want to go work anyway. They don't want to go work fast food. They don't want to do that. They'd rather just sit around and kind of be lazy and get paid to do it. But that's unfortunately not how the world works. So I think back to what your previous caller, a couple callers ago, was calling in from Waterloo about, and he was talking about he's an employer or whatnot. I think he's absolutely right. I mean, not everyone. There's definitely young people who want to do the hard, nitty-gritty work, but there's a lot of people, too, who would rather just sit back, relax, and have an easy job.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from, the fact that you've been willing to get in there and do those kinds of jobs, whereas other people aren't? Is that part of your upbringing versus maybe some of your friends? Is that what you think it is? Or?
Yeah, it might be, but, I mean, me too. My parents sort of, with Susan, or what you were just saying to Susan, the last caller, my parents sort of said, it's time to get a job, and they support me. They still provide me funds, whatnot. But when I started working, a couple of years ago, when I had enough money and I was working for 4, 5, 6 years, they said, okay, you're on your own. I'll still buy you some stuff if you need whatever, a clothes, like a shirt, some food, whatnot. But or if you want to go out to lunch with your friends, dinner with your girlfriend, you have to pay. I'm not going to supply you the money anymore. So that's kind of where it's nice. It's nice to have a bunch of money saved up. I worked hard since I was 12 years old. I was able to buy a car this year, and it sort of shows it's where your nice money goes. Everyone else is sitting here complaining they don't have enough funds to do this, they don't have enough funds to do that, or get off your rear end and work.
All right, Josh, you should be a motivational speaker, sir. I'm glad you're a first-time caller. Hope it's not the last time we hear from you. Thank you again. Hardworking Josh in Waterloo at the ripe old age of 19 years old. Can you imagine? Oh, to be young again. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, the news reports are saying the summer job market is very tight for young people. That's what we've been talking about today on Talkback. Fritz is in Calgary today. Hi, Fritz.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm calling from Calgary.
Yeah,
I just want to say that, in one respect, we're going totally the wrong way with this job situation. I grew up in Austria, in Vienna, and I went to work when I was 14 years old. And the reason for that was because I didn't seem to have an aptitude for the academic train. I was deemed to be more the vocational train. So I took a job in a shop, and it gave me an experience on how to live. It was the streetwise is what we might call it here. And I'm not talking about streetwise on drugs and so on, but I learned how to live on fairly little pay. And the other thing is, it was a chance for the employer to make a commitment to train the person, rather than just taking them advantage of some cheap labor. So I think what we need to do is we need to identify, or let the kids, I don't want to call them kids, but at 14, let them identify whether they want to go academic or whether they want to go to vocational, and give them the choice not to go to high school. You know, how much trouble is there in high school for some of the kids, and how expensive is that education when it just becomes a waste of money? When the young people don't really want it, don't force them into it. Let them make that choice. And once you come out of the apprenticeship program, you actually have a ticket for something where you are good at, and that's a journeyman. And I think that's the way we got to go. And listen, kids are absolutely good at when they're 14. They still haven't been disillusioned by the street life, and they're real keeners. And I think
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it worked out for you. But how many 14-year-olds know what they want to be when they want to grow up?
Fine. You know? It's not so much what they want to be. It is at that time what you're interested in. You know, if you're not interested in what the schools teach you, you're more likely to want to go out. Now, here's the thing. This may sound like a little bit of bragging. I wound up eventually going to university. I got my grade 12 eventually, and I went to university. I became an engineer, and I've had a fabulous career for 40 years. So it doesn't mean that you're excluded from moving up, but you're going to do it at your own interest. And that's really encouraging for people. So,
all right, Fritz. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. You're very welcome.
Yeah, bye-bye. We'll fit Joe in here. We only have about a minute and a half, though. Joe, you're on the line in Kitchener. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Joe.
Listen, it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Okay.
And we had a family business, and I was the boss's son, and I got the crappiest jobs on the planet. I mean, like hard, serious-ass hard work, factory work, on a machine. And my dad did that to us to teach us a lesson. If you're thinking about anything else, then don't, because this is the worst-case scenario you could ever end up with. So if you know somebody with a business or you know somebody with a family business, see if you can hook up with them, and then we'll see how your opportunities pan out. But sorry to say it, it is what it is. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
It's who you
Thanks,
know.
Rob.
Okay. Well, so try to know people. That's very good. Try to make connections. Networking. Yeah, very good advice, Joe, actually. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. We're going to pick up with more of your calls, I hope, right after the news. We've cleared the phone line, so grab a phone line right now. The wait won't be long at all. We'll be back right after the latest breaking news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yep. Talkback, summer jobs, the topic of the day. It's all over the news. Summer jobs in very short supply. It's a tight labor market right now, a weak labor market right now, and that could spell a bummer of a summer for a lot of young people. So we've been asking questions like, if you know a young person looking for a job, what has that been like for that person in your own circle? Any luck? No luck? If young people don't land these kind of jobs, summer jobs, first jobs in some cases for young people, what are they missing out on? If you hire young people, what's your experience there? Do Do you find they're ready to work? Are they willing to learn? Hardworking, not prepared? Give us a sense of that. Summer jobs that you have had. If you're in a nostalgic kind of mood, we can take it off into all directions. 1-833-668-2577. It was just popping into my head during our newscast. David Smith is here with me, as he always is, on Now You Know, during the Talkback. Remember during the pandemic, we had that program, CERB?
Yes.
And the government thought it was so wise. So let's send CERB to people 15 years of age and, and older.
Tons of them.
Thinking, that must have been the best summer ever for a lot of young people. Hey, Dave?
Yep.
Get a check for like $2,000 for the month. If you're 15, 16, like best summer ever. But there's no CERB now. And gosh, it's tough out there. What are some of the summer jobs that you've had, Dave? You've had all kinds of interesting jobs. David's like a jack of all trades. He can do so many things. Window cleaner? You were a window cleaner?
I don't know if I would say that. Yeah, my main summer job when I was in college was cleaning residential windows, people's houses in the suburbs, things like that. That was a great job.
How did you get into that?
Well, it was for a company called College Pro. So they recruit from local.
They did the painting. I used to see them when I was in university. Oh, College Pro painters, become a painter.
Yeah, they also do. They do painting and window cleaning, and so basically it's a corporation that franchises out businesses to students. So our boss paid College Pro a chunk of money to have the rights to sell window cleaning services
kind of thing
in certain postal codes in Ottawa, in the west end of Ottawa. So I worked for him and my roommate worked for him as well. So we both would get up in the morning and go to work together and then go home together at the end of the day because he had a car. So it was a good way to get to work because I didn't have a car at the time. It was a great job. And so that involved
What did you like about that job?
Just being sort of a little bit unsupervised. It was kind of a self-starting job. We got to the point where my roommate and I were running a crew out of his vehicle. So we had 2 vehicles. So we were kind of supervising other people doing most of the actual labor, and we would do a lot of the door-to-door sales kind of thing. So not only got to learn about interacting with clientele and customer service, managing people, managing a labor schedule and a labor budget, and all sorts of great skills that I learned from that job. And it was just nice to be outside in the summertime, working outside. My other option was to work at a call center. And I remember my dad at the time was like, I don't think you're going to want to work at a call center. I think you should take that window cleaning job.
I've known people who've worked at
he was right.
I've known people who worked at call centers. Not great places to work. From what I've been told, I've never worked in one, but from what I've been told, I knew a guy, a friend of mine, worked in a call center. And one of the jobs that they had, these call center businesses, they have like certain accounts that they have to work on. And one of the things that they had to do was call people in the United States who were behind on their medical bills.
Oh, God.
Like, can you imagine like a worse job to have than that, Dave?
No.
Like you owe whatever you owe, like $35,000 in medical bills, sir. What are we going to do about this? How can we settle this? Can you imagine the vitriol that you would get?
That would be
if you're sitting in the call center. Like, what a terrible job.
Soul sucking work. Yeah.
Oh, just like awful. And you have this script that you have to work from.
Sure.
Just like awful. But as well, I mean, there are problems that can come out of the failure of young people to find a job, Dave. We haven't really got into like what could be the ramifications of this if there are, like I say, there are 500,000 young people right now, 15 to 24, who are unemployed. They could be part of the workforce. They're not part of the workforce. And most of the young people, they're young, they're energetic. Some of them think they know it all. They've got all the world's problems solved, but others, they want their own financial independence. They want to make some money for themselves. I mean, I'm seeing on social media, my son, daughter has applied for 100 jobs and they either get 100 no's or nobody calls back at all. Right? What does that do for a young person's self-esteem, Dave?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of rejection.
That is. That is
for a 17-year-old, right? Like, that would be tough on anyone of any age to apply for 100 jobs and not find one, not be able to find a job, let alone somebody who's 15, 16, 17 years old. You could easily see how someone would start thinking, like, what the heck is wrong with me? What is it that I don't have that they want? And you could see how that could lead to feelings of whatever, anxiety, depression. Why am I not good enough? Not to be too dramatic about the whole thing, but you could see how it could lead to feelings of for young people of wanting to maybe isolate, disengage. Well, I'm not good enough, and that can lead to a whole bunch of other problems. But if people want to weigh in on the conversation, it's been busy so far on this topic during Talkback. We've loved the call so far. Bit of a lull right now, so the wait won't be too long if you want to jump in here. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback. Rob Snow here with David Smith on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Summer jobs are our topic for the day. Hard to come by for young people right now. James is in Calgary. First-time caller, as a matter of fact. Love to hear that. Hi, James.
Hi, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, James. How you doing these days?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good.
I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Appreciate that.
I just wanted to, call in and voice some of my experience on the topic that we've been discussing today. So I'm 40 years old. I was born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, and I own multiple businesses in the city here.
Okay.
Based on my experience, anytime I've hired some of the younger students here, and I'm not saying they're not all of them are like this, but in my experience, when you're a 14 or 15-year-old kid, you got so many other things going on in your life. You got school, you got extracurricular activities, and all these other things going on in your life that, work is not your utmost priority, maybe at that age of your life.
Right.
Where, let's say there's like, international students and people coming in internationally for work, like, when they show up, they're going to work hard because, if they don't, they might not be able to pay their rent. They might not be able to have, food on the table. Whereas if you're like a 15 or 16-year-old kid, you're likely still living with your parents. If you don't go to work, it's not like you're not going to eat. So I feel like, because of that, at least in my experience, I've had better success with hiring people who really need the job and are willing to do any kind of job that's available to them.
And what kind of business are you in? What kind of business are you in? I'm just curious. Hospitality or what?
I own multiple like food businesses, like well-known franchises.
Franchises.
And then also in my experience, like I said, I was born and raised in Calgary. When I was 15 and 16 years old looking for jobs during the summertime, I would be giving out 50 resumes a day too. Like I feel like it's not a new phenomenon. And there was times when I'd give out 50 resumes in a weekend and nobody would call me back. And then I'd go the next day and give out 50 more. Eventually somebody would call me back. But even back then when I was growing up here, it's not like I would apply to one job and they would call me back and I'd get the job right away.
Right.
There was a lot of hunting for jobs back then as well. But I feel like, if you're really looking for work and you're persistent enough and you apply to enough places, eventually someplace should call you back. Now, based on my experience as well, I wanted to share something as well.
Sure.
There's been times while I've been an entrepreneur where I've had to close my business during business hours because I didn't have people showing up to work. And
wow.
and that was mostly the 15, 16-year-old students. Like I said, they have a lot going on. They're in school, they're playing basketball, hockey, other extracurriculars. So work is not their utmost priority. But ever since I've been, focusing on hiring, or ever since I've, hired people internationally, I've never had to shut my business down. Like I never lost money where I had to
So it gives you more certainty, more reliability. Fair enough.
Yeah, and it's not the kids' fault. Kids are kids, right? When you're 14 and 15, you got a whole bunch of other exciting things in your life.
I suppose. Okay. Thank you, James. Yep. Good contribution there, James. To Medicine Hat, Tyler. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Tyler. Good to hear from you, Tyler.
Good. Yeah, first-time caller here. I've been listening for a while. Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. Maybe it's the way that these young people are applying for jobs, right?
Okay.
You know, you hear the 50 jobs, 100 jobs thing, but there's also all these platforms that they use, Indeed, Glassdoor, all of those kind of things, right? And, you know, these things kind of funnel resumes and applications based on certain words and whatnot.
Okay.
Right. So when you're doing that electronically, maybe these kids either they don't know how to kind of get through, or they're not tailoring their resume in a certain way to get through. Because it's actually a job I'm working now. I applied for it through Indeed. They gave me a kind of standard email like, oh, no, sorry, we're going elsewhere with this. And then I talked to literally the GM of the company that day, and he's like, okay, yeah. Like, don't worry about that email. That's just a filter thing. So maybe it's just kind of the way that people are going about it. You know, that's kind of my opinion.
Okay, so
maybe
what would be your tip? Like what did you do? Do you call the company directly, or what did you do?
Well, I walked up to. I live in a small town, right? I'm in Medicine Hat. There's not a lot of. There's not a ton of millions of people here, right? So
right. And you saw this posting online on Indeed, and you applied for it there.
Yeah, I clicked.
And you got this. Oh, we're going in a different direction or whatever. So you went to the business itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like obviously the first way is kind of the easy way, the modern way, and you know, you click a couple buttons, apply, right? And just my advice would be don't mail it in, you know, if you're going to use those apps, you know, Indeed, you know, for me in a small community, it's easy to just travel, but if you're going to use those apps and like Indeed, just have a cover letter, right? Maybe maybe follow up, right? It always suggests you follow up. But don't just follow up through the app. Maybe show you're serious about the job just by walking in, meeting someone, right, face to face. I think still a lot of employers like that, right?
Well, that's such great advice. Tyler, thank you. Thank you for your call. That's another great contribution, another great tip there. We'll be right back with some more calls on Talkback, Summer Jobs Edition. Christy in Calgary. Hi, Christy.
Hi.
Hi, Christy.
Hey, so I have two young people in my house, a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old. I'm lucky they both have part-time jobs.
Okay.
But the one big thing is thinking outside the box a little bit. So my youngest, who's 15, currently has a part-time job refereeing soccer. And, you know, that is amazing because he loves sports. He loves athletics. So it's something that comes naturally to him. And I mean, the rate of pay for these young referees, they're making like $30, $40 an hour out there refereeing soccer. You know, you could do outdoor in the summer, indoor, of course, we're in Canada in the winter and such. But I mean, there's so many youth athletics that, you know, referees, umpires, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's a great opportunity. It's a resume builder. And for some of these young kids, why not?
Yeah, and there was another parent who called in the first hour and said, other employers look at people who have been umpires or referees, and they like that as a job skill. There's a lot of transferable skills there. I found that really interesting. So when somebody wants to become, like, say, a referee, for example, in the case of your like, who do they apply to? Is it through the municipality? Is it through the league? Just how did they get into that?
So the government, I guess it's the Alberta Soccer Association holds
Alberta Soccer Association. Okay.
Yeah, and then you have to take a course. Like it is, you know, it's an investment and it's a serious dedication. You take a course, you take a test. You have to go through yearly, I guess it would be requalifications and such. But once you're a referee and just doing requalifications, I mean, you can go and you could be doing, you know, provincial refereeing, work your way up. I mean, there's a lot of adults that do this as a part-time job. And I mean, like I said, the pay just goes up and up. So I just think it's a wonderful option maybe for some of these kids who don't want to get like a traditional part-time job.
Right. Okay. Flipping burgers, whatever they're doing, landscaping or whatnot. Yeah, sure. Okay. And your other child, what?
He's an undergrad. He's home for the summer. He's working part-time at a boarding kennel. So he's held that job every summer since he was 17. So it's great because he already had a bit of a foot in the door.
Right.
But I will say it's a very tough market. Even it was back when he was 17 and first applying for his part-time job and such, even in Alberta, when they say the land of opportunity, he struggled. He put his resume out to a lot of places, and a lot of times it was who you knew and getting your foot in the door somewhere. But I do feel for these young people who actually do want to go out and work. I think the market right now is really difficult.
Okay, that's great information. You're the second mom to bring that up today about refereeing or umpiring being an official in sports in some way, and how that can be beneficial to young people down the road. And apparently, I mean, they're hiring all the time. Was that the experience with your child, that it wasn't really all that difficult to find a job like that?
No, he's getting games offered, all the time, and it's seasonal work, yeah. But
seasonal work,
you
sure.
make yourself out there, but still, for a 15-year-old, it's perfect.
It's great stuff. Okay, thank you so much for your call, Christy. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? You never know what's going to come up and what you're going to learn. That's why we love doing Talkback. And we'll be back tomorrow, brand new topic and more of your calls, more of your opinions. It's a very busy news day. The Prime Minister will be having a news conference about 3 hours from now or so. They've been having this cabinet meeting retreat in the Gatineau Hills of the National Capital Region, probably at the Prime Minister's summer residence there. It's quite the spot. You should see it. So that'll be a big news story later in the day. But we'll bring you right up to date on the latest breaking news right here on News Radio.